Hi, everybody. I'm Megan McDonald. I'm the author of the Judy Moody series of books for kids and also the author of Stink books, which you're going to be hearing about. And I'm coming to you today from my house where I live in Northern California. And today you can see me in my little studio. It's just a little tiny room upstairs in my house. And I can look out and see the mountains and see my garden. And I have all of my books and Judy Moody and Stink things. You can see, like Judy, I like to collect things. I have my notebooks here, my computer, and a comfy chair where I can read or daydream or think about what I'm going to be writing. And today, I especially wanted to tell you about a brand new book. It's not even out yet, so it'll be coming out on September 8th. And this is a book about Judy Moody's little brother named Stink. It's called Stink and the Hairy, Scary Spider. And in this book, Stink he's making all of this origami. So he's really into origami, and he makes a jumping frog and he wants to see it jump. So he takes it out into the yard and presses the back, and the frog starts to jump, and he keeps pressing it and it keeps jumping further and further away. And finally it jumps into a corner of the yard with tall weeds, and all of a sudden Stink stops because he thinks he sees something pink in the grass, and he's not sure what on earth could it be. Is it some play clay? Is it a toy? Is it a pink jelly bean? What could it be? So as he gets further into the tall grass and he peers into the grass, he finds a freaky deaky exotic spider. And it turns out this spider is a South American pink-toed tarantula. And it actually has pink on the ends of all of its toes. So he not only sees one pink thing, he sees 8 pink things. Well, Stink realizes this must be somebody's pet that has escaped, because they're not just out in the wild, right? And so he realizes he really wants to rescue this special pet of somebody's, but there's only one problem. Stink is really, really afraid of hairy, scary spiders. So how is he going to do this? How is he going to rescue a spider? Well, his friend Webster comes along, and Webster Gomez is one of Stink's best friends. And usually when you think about spiders, most of us are either squishers or savers, which means we're kind of afraid of spiders and we think they're a little creepy, or we like to save them and preserve them and we find them interesting. So Webster really likes spiders, and he's a saver, and he decides he is going to try to help his friend Stink overcome his fear of spiders. Well, how is he going to do this? He'll try to desensitize Stink so that Stink isn't so afraid. And some of the things that Webster tries in the book, for example, he reads a chapter to Stink from Charlotte's Web, the book Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, because that's about a very good, kind spider, and he thinks that might change Stink's feeling about spiders. Well, I get ideas for books from all different places. Sometimes it's from something small. Sometimes it's an idea from something that really happened to me in my life. But in this particular book for the Hairy, Scary Spider, I got the idea from a kind of freaky article that I read in the newspaper. I just clipped it out after I read it because I couldn't believe this when I read it. The headline says, theoretically, spiders could eat everyone on Earth in 1 year. Now, if you're wondering how is that possible, right? In the article, it says that they did a study and they were looking for spiders in homes in North Carolina. Well, spiders turned up in 100% of these homes. In fact, they said, no matter where you are, there's probably a spider staring at you right now, right? So if you took all the spiders in the world, they eat between 400 million and 800 million tons of prey in a year. So if you took all the humans on Earth and you weighed all of them, that would only come to 287 million tons. So actually, all the people don't even weigh as much as what spiders of the world could eat in a year. So in 1 year, spiders could eat us all and they would still be hungry. So I thought, Stink is into science and he's always reading the S encyclopedia. And I thought, I have to write about these spiders because it's so fascinating. Yeah, so it started with Judy Moody, and in this book this is the first book in the series of Judy, and it has the most stories that are based on my own life growing up with 4 older sisters. Don't you feel for me? So when I went to write about Judy, I decided I would make her a big sister. Since I'm the youngest of 5, I wanted to write about what it would be like to be the older sister. But to be the older sister, I had to give her somebody younger, right? So I gave her a little brother so that it would be different from my own life. That way I can base it on some of the stories from growing up with sisters, but I also can add in a lot of imagination because Stink would be different from my actual sisters. So Stink appears in this original book. And then readers who were reading Judy Moody, guess what? Everybody loved Stink so much, and Stink was often their favorite character. So I was speaking with kids at a school in Vancouver one time, and all of the boys in the class dressed up like Stink, and they came marching into the classroom and sat themselves down, and they made up a little chant, and they went, Stink, 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 Stink. And I said, what are you guys doing? And they said, we are here today to tell you that we think you should write a whole book about Stink and have Stink be on the cover because we love Stink. And I was telling my editor this story, and she said, that's a great idea. What do you think of that? And I realized because Stink is the younger brother, he's the youngest, and I really connect with him, I decided I would really like to write a book from that perspective as well. So that's how the Stink books first came about. I'm so thrilled to be part of the National Book Festival this year on its 20th anniversary. It's also the 20th anniversary of Judy Moody this year, so those kind of go together. And one of the things that I admire about the character of Judy Moody is her creativity and her ingenuity. So whatever comes her way, she's always thinking up some kind of creative solution to a problem or creative ingenious idea that she can get her friends to all be part of. She has a passion for a lot of things. And I think that's such a wonderful quality. And the theme of this year's book festival is ingenuity, and American ingenuity in particular, I think is something that Judy Moody, in being her creative self, and not always, she's unusual because she doesn't always approach things in a very traditional way that we might think. So that is something that I hope readers will take inspiration from. Libraries are such a big part of my life. From the time I was 14 years old, I worked as a shelver in a public library, and I had wonderful children's librarians at my local public library who really inspired me. When I was very young, just growing up, we didn't even have a public library branch in our town. So we had a bookmobile that used to come to the shopping center. It was a big green truck, and it would pull up to the center. And my sisters, the 4 sisters, and I would all pile onto the truck, and we'd get armloads of books, especially to read in the summer. Well, one summer, my sisters and I had this great brainstorm, this idea. We thought, we're going to try to read all the children's books on the bookmobile. So we got armloads of books and we were sharing them and trying to read them. Well, we didn't realize, I didn't even realize this till I grew up and became a librarian myself. The bookmobile goes back to the library every night and they add more books onto the truck. So we were never going to read all the books because there would always be more books. So I grew up as a reader before I was ever a writer, but so much. And then I grew up to, after college, I went to library school and became a children's librarian and worked in public libraries for many, many years. And that work as a librarian really helped me to not just my love of books, but I was telling stories to kids. I was doing story times where I read aloud, and I was always in a role where I was connecting children with books. So all of that feeds into my work and my love of books. In fact, my very first book, it was called Is This a House for Hermit Crab? And my very first book was based on a story that I told as a librarian. So my dream is to someday, I have been to the Library of Congress and visited, and I've spoken there, but someday I would love to go behind the scenes, and I would love to find a copy of my very first book in the Library of Congress. I think that would just be such a thrill. Readers often ask me, if I want to be a writer, what could I do? What is your advice to somebody who really wants to write? And it's so encouraging because I meet so many young people who love to read, who love to write, many kids are making their own books and illustrating them, which I think is just so wonderful. So when I really think about what could I say to any of you who want to write a book, it's so simple. Really, the best advice I have is read, 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 read. Read books at home, go to your school library and check them out, go to the public library when you can, buy books at bookstores, just feed yourself with books. And the more you read, I think the more we learn and intuit how story is created and what makes us really connect with a particular book. So if you just love reading and keep reading, that will set your path if you want to become a writer and illustrator of books. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. I want to thank Candlewick Press and the National Book Festival for having me. And I'm so delighted to be with you all. Keep up all the great reading. Bye, everybody.